Hello everyone, I'm Brazen Eagle and thank you for joining me here. So, from this article from the Japan Times, Japan enacts legislation making preschool education free in effort to boost low fertility rate. Well, honestly, that does not seem like a very smart way to address Japan's very low fertility rate, which I'll share with you in just a moment here. Anyways, Japan enacted legislation Friday that will make preschool education free as part of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's drive to expand child care support and boost the country's birth rate. The government will use revenue from the planned consumption tax hike in October to run the education program, which is expected to cost 776 billion yen per year. Holy cow! The bill, which secured lower house approval in April, was passed by the upper house on Friday amid criticism from some opposition lawmakers that the government should first focus on reducing the number of children on waiting lists for nursery school spots before making preschool education free. Under the program, the government will make preschool education free for all children between ages 3 and 5 starting in October. Daycare services will also be made free for children up to 2 from low-income households. If parents send their children to preschool that are not authorized by local governments, maximum monthly subsidies of 37,000 yen per child will be given for those between 3 and 5 and 42,000 for those aged 2 and younger. School meals will not be covered. The financial burden on education and child rearing weighs heavily on young people, becoming a bottleneck for them to give birth and raise children. That is why we're making education free, Abe told a diet session on Thursday. Well, usually, at least some people, they really don't care how much it costs, but they'll have kids anyways. I'll get into my opinion once we're done with this article. Abe's administration has been encouraging greater participation by women in the workforce amid a deepening labor crunch while trying to reduce the number of children on waiting lists for daycare facilities. Does he realize that putting more and more women in the workforce will ultimately reduce the number of children you will have? Women only have so much time during the day. So here's the Japanese fertility rate. The nation's fertility rate, the average number of children a woman will bear in her lifetime, stood at 1.43 in 2017 according to government data. That is one of the lowest in the world, if not the lowest. Abe changed how the revenue from October's planned consumption tax hike to 10% from 8% will be used prioritizing child care support over improving the country's tattered finances. While the ongoing U.S.-China trade tensions have raised uncertainty about the outlook for the nation's export-driven economy, Abe is expected to go ahead with a tax hike, barring an economic downturn on the scale of the financial crisis triggered by the 2008 collapse of the U.S. investment bank Lehman Brothers Holding Company, or Incorporated. Wow, so you're going to tax people even more to pay for this. Great. The diet also passed a bill to cut the financial burden of higher education on students from low-income families that are exempted from residence tax payments. Under a system to be launched in April 2020, entrance and tuition fees will be waived or reduced at public and private universities. Oh, God. At national and public universities, standard entrance fees are about 280,000 yen, which is actually sounds like quite a bit of money in American dollars, while tuition comes to around $540,000 or 540,000 yen per year, which still sounds like a lot of money. In addition, students from tax-exempt families will receive grant scholarships that can be used to buy textbooks, pay for transportation, or cover living expenses. In an example case, the government said that if students come from a family of 4 with an annual household income of less than 2.7 million yen, they can take advantage of all the system's benefits. So basically taking advantage of other people's money. Great. Wow. So basically, what Japan is saying, or at least Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is saying, is we should make preschool more affordable. And I guess some college and universities as well more affordable so that people have more babies. I kind of said this earlier, but that's not going to work, It sounds nice for the government to pay for more things, but that comes at a cost. Basically, since Abe is going to introduce a tax hike that will pay for these services, Japanese people, will have less money to spend on other things. Now, he thinks that people just don't have enough money to raise kids. But that's not exactly the problem. Yeah, sure. raising children, it ain't cheap. It definitely isn't very cheap to raise a child. But that's not why Japan's fertility rate was 1.43 in 2017. You know, in Japan, socially, they have these people called herbivore men. If you haven't heard of these before, and I know I'm probably talking to the group of people that know about these people very well. These are men that do not or have no interest in getting married or finding a girlfriend, which was also a term used to describe young men who had lost their manliness. It was coined in 2006, so 13 years ago. It roughly translates to the act of living alone and performing tasks independently of other people. Let's see. Apparently, someone said that you should probably watch for these men because they actually will have a lot of money. Because if you don't get married, you don't have a girlfriend, you don't have kids. Single men, they actually have quite a bit of money. I should know. Anyways, even though I really don't. Anyways, surveys of single Japanese men conducted in 2010 found that 61% of men in their 20s and 70% of the men in their 30s considered themselves to be herbivores. And the Japanese government views the phenomenon as one possible cause of the nation's declining birth rate. Wow, I did not know 70% of men in their 30s that consider themselves to be herbivores. Wow, that's more than, that's 2/3 of that entire decade of those men in their 30s. Holy cow. Philosopher Masahiro Moriko defines herbivore men as kind and gentle men who, without being bound by manliness, do not pursue romantic relationships voraciously and have no aptitude for being hurt or hurting others. So basically, they're just kind of there making money and living their lives. Japan recorded only a 1.42 birth rate in 2014, down from a high of 1.84 in the mid-1980s, which that's still not at the replacement level. Many blame this drastic fall on the rise of herbivore men in Japan, and has been attributed to the herbivores men's reluctance to marry. Huh. Let's see. Wow. Japanese women might be further discouraging men from entering into romantic relationships. I would probably agree with that. The decision that many herbivore men make to stop working because work and marriage are so interrelated may have made it more difficult for these Japanese men to find marriage. Honestly, it just says that these herbivore men don't even want to get married, so why they're not looking for marriage. Many women refuse men who do not have steady jobs, such as feeders and NEET, which is up here, not looking in education, employment, or training. Other women feel that self-proclaimed herbivore men are weak and not masculine, while some men apparently are not attracted to independent women. I'll be honest with you, a lot of guys, they don't want independent women. Yeah, it'd be nice if you had a girlfriend or wife that would make money, but at the end of the day, you don't care about how independent a woman is. You really care about how attractive she is and whether she will, if you're looking for a long-term relationship, whether she'll have kids with you and how many kids. In a 2011 poll of Japanese boys aged between 16 and 19, 36% said they were not interested in having sex. The figure for girls in the exact same age group, so 16 and 19, was at 59%. Man, the teenage birth rate must be just extremely low in Japan. This guy argues that Japanese herbivore men are a result of Japan's post-war peace. Since the end of World War II, Japan has not directly participated in any war or conflict, either within its own borders or outside them. Prior to this time of peace, many Japanese felt that becoming a soldier was the only approach to becoming manly. The social norm slowly disappeared during the following period of post-war peace. Due to this, Japanese men are less aggressive and could bleed over into their romantic lives. Wow. So basically, if you want to raise the Japanese fertility rate, what you have to do is get women out of the workforce and limit their access to education. Now, that might be a little bit too much of a shift from what I just currently talked about, but if you Google feminism and overpopulation, you'll see why or how the Western countries, Japan, the United States, Germany, the UK, France, Spain, have falling fertility rates ever since the 70s and 80s. Even Japan before then, in the 1980s, had a 1.84 fertility rate. That was 30 years ago. Japan has been on the decline for at least 30 years. But feminism, and yes, Japan doesn't really exactly have a strong feminist outlook, or really a strong feminist ingraining of the culture in Japan, but it's a mixture of traditional ideas, traditional beliefs within Japan that make men not want to, have a girlfriend and get married. There's just too much. The expectations are just too high for men who just don't want to have extremely high expectations on them. I mean, back when I was growing up, you would hear of these Japanese men literally falling dead from working too hard, and in their 30s, they would literally go to work, working like 80 hours, 100-hour work weeks every single week, and just die literally on the job. I mean, honestly, if you want to make Japan have a good birth rate, like I said, you limit women's access to education, take away their voting rights, and make it worthwhile for men to get married. At the end of the day, women are the bottleneck for reproduction in the country, at least until we have the artificial womb. But at the time being, before we actually have that stuff, you have to make it worthwhile, incentivize men to get married, because honestly, at this point, there's no incentive for men to get married, except, maybe to have genetic offspring, biological offspring, but even then, with, infidelity, there's no guarantee that your children are actually your children. But Japan, we will see a lot fewer Japanese people in the future, and as well as fewer Western people, unless men figure out how to reverse course in this terrible decision called feminism in society. But with that in mind, thank you very much for watching. I'm Brazen Eagle, and I hope you have a great day.